During the holidays, there is no place like home. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. As I like to say, seasons screenings. I hope you and your family are doing well during the holiday. I love the holiday season. For me, it's like a great opportunity to actually catch up on movies and shows and binge. Not that I don't do that already, as part of my work. But I really wanted to highlight this particular documentary series right before the holidays. This has been such a crazy year. I feel that we're all lucky just to have gotten through 2020 and gotten to this place. And we have seen our world change in ways we could never have imagined. And there's a particular problem in Los Angeles that is not specific to Los Angeles per se, that has afflicted all of California, from San Diego, Oakland, the Bay Area, and across the United States. And that's homelessness. And it's something that's right in front of us. When you go to downtown Los Angeles now, travel as I do around the city, this is not an invisible problem. This is something that has exploded across our country, and this documentary series, The Way Home, highlights this issue. I want to bring onto the podcast one of the directors, producer, the showrunner of The Way Home, Don Hardy. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. Thank you for joining me right around the holidays. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Chris. It's great to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, this is an issue that is right in front of all of us. It's something I'm sure. I don't think I need to ask you what motivated you to want to do this series. It's very clear this is an issue. I do hope, just having spent a lot of time in the world of indie film, real quick, 20 years ago, there were I couldn't count the number of documentaries that existed about the legalization of marijuana for medicinal purposes, etc. Now I don't see those documentaries anymore, because that's an issue that I feel that we resolved. We've come to now accept marijuana. Not, it's medicinal purposes. There are many good things about it. I don't see documentaries about legalizing marijuana. I would like to see many more documentaries about homelessness. Yeah. Because I feel that as media creators in film, in series, that you can have a huge impact on how people look at this problem. And your series brought to light things I never knew about homelessness, the causes of it, the roots. I knew about Reagan in the 80s, kind of, defunding help for the mentally ill. And that sort of was the beginnings of it. But tell me more about this and how you personally got involved, in The Way Home.
Yeah, it really is something that we all see living in California, or really any major metropolitan area around the US. You see people living outside. And so I think it just became very apparent that we needed to try to tell a story of the reality of being out on the street, and the people that are on the front lines that are trying to get people off the street and into housing, whether it's temporary housing, permanent housing solutions, and what really led this problem to grow into what many experts are now calling an epidemic. Like that word is out there. It is a crisis, and it was a crisis before COVID, without one clear organization that was trying to work in the interest of all people on the streets. You have a lot of smaller organizations, sometimes working together, but a lot of times siloed, all trying to do their part. So the idea for the series was to let's take a look at the state that we happen to live in, California. Not just because it's close and easier to shoot, but it also represents the state with the largest amount of homeless people in our nation. So it seemed like as California goes, so goes the nation. And so that was the idea when we jumped into this project, and just started working with I'm up in Northern California. I'm just outside of Oakland. So we started working with an organization here that is Bay Area Community Services. And they are profiled in one of the pieces. And they were working specifically with this one pot of money to help seniors or those with some sort of health condition get off the street. And so that is one of our episodes. And then we move down towards Bakersfield and see what's happening there. And it's a different set of a different reality down there. I mean, they're not really, they're staying by the river, they're staying in open fields. But it's the same problem of how do we get these folks off the street and into housing, and maybe use a model called housing first, rather than trying to deal with whatever other problems, maybe mental illness, maybe substance abuse, those things. Like, let's solve one problem first, and that is to get them inside into some sort of shelter. And then we keep traveling down the state towards Los Angeles, and we're just trying to paint a portrait of the different faces of homelessness here in our state.
Well, it's interesting because your series focuses on different aspects of the issue and brought to light a lot of things that I was unaware of. I mean, you know, mostly the reason that people are homeless are, you know, mental illness, drug addiction, and there's a whole other class of homeless person that just through economic circumstances, and that's the fastest growing group of homeless people now. You know, and
absolutely,
it should be no surprise. What really shocked me is the number of people over 50 who are now finding themselves in these circumstances. Each episode of this documentary series focuses on a particular issue and really examines it. One of the episodes gives a historical perspective, showing the roots of homelessness from the 80s and kind of each decade, how it kind of contributes. It's not something that happened overnight. We can't blame 2020 and its circumstances for all of this. This was a growing issue. What are some of the things that shocked and surprised you that you learned in the process of doing this series?
Yeah, I think, you know, the big one, as you said, is it's not everybody on the street, you know, chooses to be out there because they want to do drugs, or they move from other places to become homeless here in California. These are a lot of things I've heard over the years talked about, and it just doesn't bear out to be the truth of the matter. Most of the people that you see on your streets in Los Angeles or up here in Northern California or anywhere, it's because they used to be living here in a house. They used to be working here and part of our local economy. They still might have family in the area. So that's why people oftentimes choose to stay close to where they have some roots, some safety net, something like that. So that was a big misconception that I had corrected, you know, soon after starting working on this. I think another one is just how it doesn't take a lot for somebody to end up on the street. It could start with losing a job. It could start with some sort of health condition, or, you know, you're trying to help a family member, then you end up on the street yourself. You know, certainly rent skyrocketing. There's so many factors. And now, you know, yeah, as you said, like, this was a situation before COVID, but it certainly is. We're going to see over the next 6 months a whole new crop of people hitting the street that have probably never been there before. And these are moms and dads, brothers and sisters, people that were really part of the society that now are struggling to find a way to get by.
I mean, as strange as it seems, I have people in my own friend circle who are now looking at January and this impending, you know, rent apocalypse, and looking for some sort of relief. They're going to find themselves having to move back with family, and I've seen it. It's horrible, and I also feel that this is such a big problem. It's not something we can just look to our elected officials to solve. It's you know, look, I don't want to get too political in this discussion, but I see the way our elected officials have handled problems lately, and I'm not exactly sure that I have faith in them. I do believe in the free enterprise, and I believe in people doing good to actually help contribute to this. So when I watch anything, when I was watching your series, it's like that sense of helplessness of like, you know, sure, I can, contribute money. I can go to a shelter and serve food. I can do that. But I feel like this is such a much bigger issue. It deserves a commission, a task force, something. Where are you seeing the problem solved correctly? That one of the stories that you cover in the doc, which was amazing, is a guy who found himself homeless. He felt embarrassed by it. He was kind of humiliated and humbled by it. He ends up in a living space where then you see what an amazing artist he is. Like that, I was blown away by. But what can people do, and how can things be mobilized? Because quite frankly, I look around and I see the problem only getting worse. And whether it's a combination of bad policy and circumstances, there must be more that can be done.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's a lot in that. I mean, I think that on the surface, it does feel like the problem is only getting worse. But over the past year or 2 years, these organizations have been housing a record number of people. But the problem is there's more people ending up on the street. So to you and I, and to the average person that's walking down the street, it feels like the problem is unchanged. It feels like there's just more and more tents going up. And I guess there are. But there's also a lot of good happening with people, on that smaller level, that 1-to-1 level or 1 to 50 level, where people are finding temporary housing maybe, and then, or temporary shared housing environment, and then end up finding real more permanent housing. Or the man that you mentioned, Michael, he is in permanent supportive housing down in Los Angeles. So these opportunities happen, and these resources are there. We have on our website, we have a list of a lot of the organizations that we've either profiled or used as for background information that are out there all around our state doing great work. So if people are interested, it's thewayhomedoc.com. We're just really now building it out with resources, but you can connect with a lot of the organizations that are really doing great work. And then on the government level, I think what Gavin Newsom did this year with Project Room Key, which is moving people who are homeless into hotels, and now it's trying to transition those hotels from Room Key into a Project Home Key, which will make it a more permanent solution. And that's all a result of what's happened with the COVID pandemic. Is they found that they can move people more quickly now because those emergency resources are there, some from the federal government, some from the state government, but it has allowed people to mobilize, and it shows that there is a way to solve this with more people and more money coming to the issue. And hopefully our series fits in there somewhere with informing and entertaining the folks that just want to know a little bit more about this. And we can give them a snapshot of how we got here and where we might be headed.
Well, I mean, I maybe we should all think positive that a lot of the people on the West Side in Santa Monica are having to step over homeless tents to get to their yoga classes to actually finally pay attention to this issue. Maybe that's what it takes, right? Like, I
think we have somebody say in one of the episodes, like, it really didn't hit any of us where it needed to until we started having to almost step over people to get through our daily routine. And, it is, I don't think it's any of our faults. There's a word or phrase like NIMBYism, not in my backyard, that is floated out a lot when you talk about homelessness. And I say, oh, geez, that's, there was an incident in San Francisco where people moved in giant boulders in front of their homes so that people couldn't put tents up there. And, you sit and you say, oh, well, those people, that's awful that they wouldn't let somebody stay there. But I don't really want them sleeping in front of my house either. So, there's a lot of factors to it. And I don't think we can paint anything with a broad brush. I think we need real solutions. We need more affordable housing built. I mean, that is truly the biggest problem, is there's not enough affordable housing. And then we need to support these organizations that are trying to, and have housing navigators out there that are helping people get into homes and get the support services that they all need. So it is a big problem, but our hope is that with the series, we leave people with some hope that that solutions are out there.
Well, it's a beautiful series. Are you going to continue the series? I kind of felt like I want more episodes of this because I also, it's one of the things where I always, whenever I watch local news, the local news in Los Angeles seems to really be on top of it. It is a recurring issue that they cover problems regarding the homeless. There's been a growing issue of these some of these tents burning down. Because people try to cook their own food and they don't have traditional services. They've got porta potties set up and some form of sanitation, but not just able to. So this is like something on the local news in Los Angeles is constantly being covered. Good, and I feel like your series takes a much deeper dive. But what else can we expect from this series? And I'm just going to assume it's available on all platforms like iTunes and whatnot, video on demand, etc.
Yeah, it's currently on Apple, Amazon, and Google, and then other streaming platforms will come online. Everybody has a little bit different windowing for things, but right. It's on the big three right now, and that is what we're calling our season 1. It's 4 episodes, and now we're deep in production on season 2, which is really started from when COVID began in March. So our first episode of the season 2 will be frontline workers and what's going to happen. You probably remember there was a lot of fear that this was going to devastate the unsheltered community. It was just going to be, and fortunately that hasn't happened. But from there, the series goes into some of these other things I mentioned about Project Room Key and using these hotels, using these places to get people off the streets more quickly than has been in the past, to cut through a lot of the red tape. And then we'll leave this season off and hopefully have another one that gets into some of the long-lasting repercussions of not only COVID, but being unsheltered during COVID, the mental health issues that creep up, what happens when a family is on the street through this and kids can't go to school. There's so many issues to cover, and we're trying to break them down into easily watchable segments, but while also getting deep and really showing the faces of homelessness. I think that's something I'm most proud of with this is we're not going up and sticking a camera in people's faces, but we're going to them with a little bit of heart and asking them to share their stories. And most of them are very willing to. They've been wanting somebody to listen to them for a long time. And then showing these faces of people that aren't very different from us. And I think that'll give audiences something to relate to.
Well, Don, thank you so much for your doc series and your continued work. I hope it inspires other filmmakers to take a look at this issue from whatever direction. Because, like I said earlier, I saw so many documentaries about legalizing marijuana. And now here we are. And I feel that, I don't believe that homelessness is a problem that cannot be solved. I don't agree with that. And I think that it can be. I think that when you look at what we've achieved as a civilization and where we are, and how even like getting to a COVID vaccine in a year, less than a year, is remarkable. And you would think that the same type of efforts could be put toward other problems. I hope that this just inspires us to look back at what we've done and say there are all sorts of problems that we can attack. And I feel you and I should be very fortunate. I see your background. You don't have unfolded laundry in the back. You have a beautiful home. I'm sitting around a bunch of movie collectibles in a warm house on the holidays. So so thank you so much for your work. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Thank you to the Film Threat audience for supporting the Film Threat podcast throughout the year and for opening your minds to all sorts of independent filmmakers and different types of work than your traditional stuff that you would see at the theater necessarily. I appreciate my audience so much. And remember to support Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/film threat. All sorts of resources for filmmakers, especially if you're a doc filmmaker, stock footage and whatnot. Don, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about your doc series. Will you come back when season 2 is available?
Absolutely. It's been great. And thank you for all you do supporting independent film. It really it means a lot. And, I'm so glad we had a chance to talk today. Happy to come back anytime.
Great. Well, congratulations on this series. Let's continue to have this discussion, and happy holidays to everybody. Give your loved ones a big hug during this holiday season. At least the ones in your, current residence.
Bubble.
Bubble. All right. Take care.
Thanks very much.